Welcome to CNNMoney Switzerland and our summer program where we dive into the mega trends of tomorrow. Today, it's all about the future of work and specifically home office. A lot of people, myself included, have been working from home for the past couple of months. Now the bigger question is, will this model continue and how does home office really affect our health and well-being? Here to break this all down for us is Volker Schulte, who's a professor of health management. Home office has certainly taken on a very different meaning this year. Talk to us about your experience and give us your top tips on how you've tried to make it work.
Yes, sure. You know, the home office is a very, very important issue because in the last weeks people had to work at home and they did it also very well. We had more than 60% of people here in Switzerland working at home. But there was also before, in 2018, about 20% of the workforce working also at home. And these figures tripled afterwards. And I think afterwards, now after the crisis, we will still get a certain level of home office which will be higher than before. My experience with home office was a very good one, because I could work from home with all the gadgets we have today. You know, you have the mobile phones, you have certainly the Teams and other, let's say, instruments you can use for discussions, for meetings, etc. The thing is, you have another flexibility if you work at home. Sometimes, and we all know that, we have maybe inefficient meetings, we have to commute, we have to go to the office, etc. Now we can focus on that, what we have to do. And I think people feel better with this. We had a study about the home office situation in Switzerland during this crisis, especially during the peak. And 70% of all people who worked at home were very happy with this. They felt comfortable. So from that point of view, we will keep this. People have more autonomy than before. You can also handle your work-life balance in a better way, because if you are too tired to look at the screen, you can go for a jogging, for a walk or whatever. And I did that too, and I could also, let's say, play a little bit with my grandson, which was also a very nice thing, you know. So you can combine good things, and we haven't had that before. This is, let's say, a new aspect of working life.
Companies abroad, like Twitter, for example, have already said to some of its employees, hey, you can simply just work from home basically for the rest of your life or indefinitely. Do you see this model taking on in Switzerland?
I think that will be a mixture. You know, we will have this trend that more and more companies go into this home office culture. And on the other side, that depends also on the culture and the leadership situation in companies. Those superiors and bosses who would like to control people, they will prefer that people come into the office working there. Those superiors who have confidence and trust also their employees, they will tell them to work at home. For instance, that is quite an interesting story. My boss, the head of my institute, he lives with this approach of mindful leadership, servant leadership. What does it mean? I got, during the crisis, twice or three times a week, a phone call or maybe a meeting with the laptop. And he didn't ask me, did you finalize task 1, 2, 3 according to your task list? He asked me, how are you? How do you feel? Is there anything I can do for you? Tell me and we will manage this. You know, that's a new kind of leadership. serving people, supporting people. We call that also mindful leadership in a digital situation.
So how are bosses or executives supposed to adjust to this shift and adopt these digital leadership skills? It's not something you can pick up from one day to the next.
Right. First of all, it's a question of generations. The new generations, Y for instance, they will automatically also support this, let's say, kind of autonomy, this approach of having more time to work and being more productive in the home office. Let's say old-fashioned superiors and employers will prefer that people come to the physical work, that means to the office. But once again, I think it will take some time, but this is now like a trigger, like a booster. With the crisis, we could already introduce new cultures of work, which would have taken years and years to introduce and to realize.
You're an advocate, it seems, because it's something that Home Office, you've already been practicing even before the crisis. Given this new situation we find ourselves in, what do you think could still be the challenges of having to sit and work at home? And what benefits would there be in actually coming to the office?
Right. One challenge certainly is that when you work at home, that you have the space also to concentrate, to work calmly on that what you have to do. And it's quite clear, you know, if you work in a 80 square meters apartment and maybe your kids are also at home and it may be noisy, so it will be quite difficult to concentrate. The more space you have, the better. But there is another aspect which is maybe even an alternative between the traditional office and the home office, and that is that people will work in kind of local hubs. That means maybe a former post office or some rooms available in the countryside, in a village, or in a small town will be used, that you can use, let's say, the equipment for the infrastructure, for internet, etc. And at the same time, you do not have to commute 35 to 40 kilometers, which is the average here in Switzerland every day, you know. So maybe you can go with your bicycle somewhere to do the work if you can't work at home. So that will be something like a third way, which will be also, let's say, opened up and realized during the next years.
Speaking about that, do you think people will be making more investments and upgrades to their homes in the future so that it is more work-friendly?
I think people do already now, you know. First of all, you do not need too much. If you have a nice, calm space and you have a laptop with different programs to communicate, that is already very much, you know. So from that point of view, the entrance level of working at home is very low. And that means you do not have to buy, let's say, new printers or copy machines, etc., because more and more you do virtually and you do not have to have a print or something. From that point of view, we can be sure that, let's say, home office cultures will increase and strengthen.
At the end of the day, there are still going to be companies that still prefer the more traditional method. They want people in the office. They want that face-to-face communication. What is your message to these companies who still don't want to implement home office, for example?
I think there are three reasons to mention. First of all, people are more productive. We talked about this. The second thing is you have less, let's say, traffic. When people commute, you have traffic jams, etc. There is an overload of the transport system, also of the individual traffic with the public infrastructure. So from an ecological point of view, it makes sense. And the third point, which is also important just for those people who count also in numbers, you can afterwards reduce also your office space in the office at the headquarters, you know. So you have 3 good reasons to say you can save money, quality of life is better, and you have the ecology which will work in a better way. So there is no reason to tell people anything different.
Volker, thank you very much for sharing your insights today. That's a lot to digest, and we'll have to wait to see how this home office really develops here in Switzerland.
Thank you very much, Olivia.
In the meantime, if you want to stay up to date with any of our content, you can simply head over to cnnmoney.ch for all of our latest interviews. In the meantime, take care, and we will see you very shortly.